I would like to now read the mission statement of the Danvers Public Schools. The Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. Is there anyone here this evening recording our meeting? Okay. Items of interest to the superintendent.
All set this evening, thank you.
School committee.
I think the school committee could extend its condolences to the city of Peabody on the loss of their superintendent. I never had the chance to meet this woman who's considered, I guess, a fine superintendent. Lisa, I know you had some experience with her, and it's a big loss anytime that happens, and so we extend our condolences.
And they also, our condolences to the assistant principal, who
Yes.
also, her family as well, for the city of Peabody.
I
Anything
just wanted to
else?
add, and Max and Cynthia are probably going to talk about it, but the play was amazing. The Addams Family musical that the kids did a couple weeks ago was awesome. I hope everyone got to see it.
Arthur, Jeff, anything?
I'm good.
I'd like to congratulate the girls volleyball team for their Division II North championship. And they did an awesome job this year in the tourney, and just want to congratulate them for all their hard work this year as well. Anyone from the community? Okay. Information from student representatives.
Okay, to start with Great Oak. At Great Oak, our kindergarten students have been introduced to all the letters of the alphabet in our Foundations program and are beginning to tap out words. They are learning how to blend sounds together and to segment words into individual sounds. Second graders are writing expert chapter books with student-chosen topics ranging from All About Sharks to Clemson University and candy. Our fifth grade scientists are investigating ecosystems and trying to figure out how to restore an ecosystem.
At Highlands, the first graders finished up their word detective unit in the reading workshop. They celebrated as dressing up as detectives, complete with magnifying glasses, caps, fake mustaches, with readers in the classroom, so that must have been really fun. In fifth grade, in math, the students kicked off their fractions unit with the why we learn about fractions. So Mr. Cox had 5 stations, and students had to go around and guess what the rule was for that group. So he had put out and gave visual representations of what they thought the rule was. And some of the examples in the stations included a picture of the 5th grade math team, and they all had different poses, and students had to identify what the rule was for the 5/8 fraction, and a touch station having to feel the items in a bag and figure out the rule for the 3/4 fraction, and a smell station, and they had to figure out from the 3 different scents that were in the bags.
For Riverside, recently during their SEL blocks, fifth graders have been working with Mrs. Silva, school's social worker. This month's topic has been relational aggression. This type of aggression is caused when someone damages another person's social relationships or social status. This may include gossiping, spreading rumors, refusing to share friends, leaving someone out of a group, just to name a few. Many students were able to give specific examples, role play various situations, and come up with productive solutions to restore their positive interactions with peers. As fifth graders begin their preparation for middle school, these are invaluable skills for self-management and social awareness.
At Smith, the 4th graders had an end of their unit reading celebration. During this unit, they focused on character development within a text. To go along with this unit, they read The Tiger Rising by Kate DiCamillo. I'm not sure if I said that right. But in the book, the main character, Rob, whittles different figures out of wood, which is a major plot in the storyline. So to celebrate the end of the fiction reading unit, the 4th grade students tried their own hand at whittling with soap. So students worked for a few days on drafting the idea of their whittling creation, and then their ideas came to life on December 5th with the help of teachers and family. It was a wonderful celebration of learning. And as part of the kindergarten social emotional learning, students have drawn pictures of their happy places. So if a child is feeling sad or lonely, they can access the picture at any time, and the pictures have helped them get back into the learning zone, or as they know it, the green zone.
For Thorpe, on the eve of Thanksgiving, the students and teachers in kindergarten and first grade gathered in the cafeteria for the annual K1 feast. They enjoyed some healthy foods provided by our generous families, but more importantly, they took a few moments to be grateful for the special people in their lives. Following the feast, the super readers in kindergarten paraded throughout the school wearing their super reader capes, which were decorated with all the reading strategies the students had been working on during Reader's Workshop. The students were so proud and very adorable. In addition to the daily classroom SEL meetings, last week, Thorpe's social worker, Courtney Henrik, led all the fifth graders in SEL activities focused on understanding people's differences and being kind to one another. These are important lessons as we prepare the students to head off to middle school in the fall.
At HRMS, at the middle school, where all these fifth graders are going to go, woo! The students have been able to participate in a number of hands-on and project-based learning experiences. Students in grade 6 dissected perch and sea lamprey, comparing the anatomy of the two species in order to draw conclusions about organ structures and the function of each species. Students in grade 7 world geography classes completed the Global Showcase unit, in which students researched economic indicators in a developing country. They created a museum exhibit that showcased life in the country, the major challenges that people faced in it, and the ways that people were working to solve the problems. The project culminated in the final presentations of students' museum exhibits were attended by the students' families. And in students in grade 6 mathematics classes were working on project-based learning unit entitled Dining in Danvers, in which students are learning about ratio and rate for the purposes of creating a menu of scaled recipes to share with the community meal program at Haven from Hunger in Peabody. Grade 8 engineering students completed a sustainable Danvers unit in which they researched solutions that could be realistically implemented into Danvers to make the town more sustainable. Solutions proposed by the students included solar, hydro, and wind power use, hydroponic farming, replacing all the cars with electric vehicles, installing a monorail, which would be cool because Danvers would be like Disney and that would be amazing, and even creating a gym that produces electricity when people work out.
Finally, at DHS, it has been a busy and productive month at DHS. We want to congratulate all of our athletic teams for their hard work and accomplishments this fall, especially to our state finalist volleyball team and our football team for back-to-back Thanksgiving Day wins for the first time since 1993. We are excited for the upcoming winter sports seasons with tryouts starting last week. Go Falcons. In the classroom, we continue to see the amazing work of our talented teachers lead to high levels of student engagement. One of our DECA groups collaborated with Thorpe School by working with fourth graders on building business and leadership skills. The project resulted in a baby Shark Tank event at DHS last week, where the elementary students pitched their business plans. Thanks to all the DECA students, as well as families, students, and staff, who are a captive audience to celebrate all the hard work. That's it.
So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Mary Beth, can I just quickly add? I just wanted to, Max, I don't think was here at our last meeting, and I just wanted to congratulate you on your high five from
Yes.
Channel 5. I know it was the whole football team, but, they focused on you, and rightfully so, for getting that last, winning field goal. So that was awesome. So congratulations.
Any questions for? No? Okay. All right. Information from the superintendent.
Thank you. We're going to begin with Danvers High School with Dr. Colombino and his team here. So we begin with our Danvers Pride presentation, and then Jason will also lead us through an update on the NEAS 2-year report.
Good evening. So we want to take a few minutes to talk about opportunity tonight for our School Pride presentation. We're working on creating opportunities for all students to learn and create conditions where they're confident in meeting the high expectations we set for them. Danvers High School is all about equity and excellence for everyone, every person that walks through our doors. Tonight we're focusing on the strategic plan pillar of student engagement. We'll hear from our teachers and students about how we're answering the enduring question of why are we learning this? First up, I'd like to introduce our English teacher, Christina Aste, and two of our talented student actors, Sam Patterson and Megan Moriarty.
Hi, so I'm here on behalf of the English department. We have invigorated the 12th grade English offerings at Danvers High. And so we now have a variety of new electives, including the evolution of a hero, page to stage, which I've got page and stage here, and as well as project citizen and writing workshop. But we really wanted to celebrate our Addams Family actors as well. Page Stage has been really exciting because we've envisioned it as a capstone for kids who are interested in visual and performing arts. And so it's all about aligning their creativity with communication skills, analysis, and critical thinking. I'll let Sam and Megan talk a bit about the work we do in that senior class.
Hello, I'm Stage. Something that a lot of us, when we chose this course to take, we were very excited to pursue something different than a traditional English course. We were really excited for kind of reading more about playwrights and the structures that directors and producers take when they put those on stage or in front of the camera. And I think a lot of us thought there would still be an aspect of traditional English, which there is, but I think something amazing that Ms. Aste has created for this class is a level of originality and improvisation that we kind of get to run our exercises. We get to run our improv exercises, our performance tasks, and that's really evident in a lot of our image work. We did an image a couple months ago of inanimate objects where we could not say anything or use our bodies. We just had to put on a show, a story, with just the use of inanimate objects. Another one we did a couple weeks ago was a story of jubilation, where we created a narrative with a group of students where we just had to represent some form of joy, joyous moment. And you could start with a sad scene or you could start with your jubilation scene. And it's just all about kind of working together in this class to kind of create your own original work. And I think that's something that's really amazing that we get to do. We get to lead our own kind of exercise. And I think that's what we see within performers as well. So that was really exciting for myself, and I'm sure exciting for Megan and all the students in the class as well. Something Ms. Aste mentioned was a lot of the actors and singers take this course, but something that was interesting for me to see was a lot of students that had no background of acting or singing just decided to take this course. And I think they really liked it because they gained a new understanding of the theater world, of the kind of performing arts world, and they could see that they could express themselves in a different way than a traditional English class would allow them. So that was really something cool to see within the course.
Hi, I'm Paige. This class, like Sam said, it's wonderful for really breaking out of your shell and performing in front of others and public speaking. But there's also the English portion of it, which I've really learned how to break down a script and a story this year when we read our scripts out in class, and everybody will take turns and be different characters. And an example of a project that we've been doing recently is stage images in our class. And stage images are scenes that we have written without any dialogue, and it's all descriptive. And now we are going to be entering the collaborative process in bringing those images that we've created to life and sharing them around with other students and being able to look and comment on each other's work, which I think is really wonderful, not only to like look over and review your own work, but also to help others. Another example of a assignment that we've done is writing our own manifestos and writing, and that involves like writing about like your aspirations and what you wish to become and the story that you want to present to others. And we also looked over that, and like we went over what it really means to be you, you know, to be authentically you, and how to put that into words. So the English in this class has taught me a lot about being creative in my writing and really knowing what it means to tell a story.
Will the history students join us, please? Oops, did I skip a?
You clicked on it. Oh, sorry.
much.
You and I are clicking. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Pamela Foss, and
I'm Lisa Trask.
So as members of the history department, we were given the opportunity to sign up for some professional development at Harvard Business School in the fall. 6 out of the 10 members of our department signed up for this opportunity. We became students and went through this signature teaching method at Harvard Business School called the case study method. How many were there? 80 teachers
about that.
80 teachers from across the nation were there at this program working through this process called the case study method that has been really successful at the business school. A professor from the business school, because it was so successful in the business school, tried it out with his undergrads. One of his undergrads liked it so much that the undergrad told his high school teacher, and that's the first link between the high school and Harvard Business School. And I think it's only been 4 years, and in those 4 years, the project has grown to, I think at this point, they've trained over 400 teachers across the nation, and they're hoping to build that. But in a real brief nutshell, what is the case study method? What is this wonderful elixir that's working all across the nation, from Harvard to high schools? Essentially, what it is it's a really thick packet of a lot of reading, and it gives students background information on a particular decision moment in history. There's a level of individual reading, then a small study group where students, whether they be the students at Harvard Business School or high school students, work through the ideas that they found and questions that they had, and then ultimately it comes to a large group discussion with your whole class, and essentially you're living the history. You don't know the answer to that decision point until the last 5 minutes of class. But it's really not about the answer. It's about the process you go through in, wrestling with the material yourself, working it out, bouncing ideas off of other people, and then really quite amazingly listening to so many different voices share out their experience with the text and the history. So, for example, 2 out of the 5 cases that we did over the course of time that we were in Boston, 2 of my favorites were arguing whether or not James Madison's federal negative should be included in the Constitution, and then arguing whether or not Martin Luther King Jr. should disobey a federal order and cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And so it was really a wonderful opportunity to be a student and to learn how to be add to our teaching practice. And then in my class, the students so far, the case that they looked at was the meat industry in 1909, and whether or not Theodore Roosevelt should support the House-sponsored bill to create a meat inspection act. And Lisa's going to talk a little bit, and then we have a wonderful audience. We have wonderful student participation tonight. They wanted to come out. I'm so thankful that they did to talk about their experience with the case method.
So what the Harvard Case Study Methods is about is trying to make a partnership between the high schools in the United States and Harvard Business Case Study Project. What they provide is they have about 25 different cases that you can choose from. All of them are written at a college level, so they all have a Lexile level of 1,200 to 1,400, so it's at a college reading level. And they also have the guiding questions, and then they have a teacher packet that goes along with it to help guide you along in different ways to approach different questions and guide them in different directions to try to come to different conclusions. And they know that not every question can possibly be in a written assignment. And so they're trying to have a partnership to see how to take a college level application into a high school level. And so what they're doing is they're having us each try 4 different cases throughout the year. Just like Pamela tried the Meat Inspection Act, my first case was the Australian ballot, asking should it have been passed in California and ultimately throughout the entire United States, and talking about the pros and cons of the Australian ballot, or secret ballot if you're not sure what I'm talking about. And so what they do is with the 4 case studies, they understand that they're working with a college level group and that we're working with various grade levels at the high school. And so what they're looking for is seeing how students are pre the case, what they know as a base knowledge, go through the case, and then how students feel and their access to knowledge after the case. And so they're looking for that from the student's perspective. And from us, they're looking for the idea of what did we do to modify. It's a little hard to see. I didn't darken the photo enough. But like I had guiding questions that went along with it to try to help them process what they're reading, because it's about a 15 to 20 page document that they're getting. And so they're wondering how we're modifying it so that high school students can access a college level reading. They do have other modifications if you need it too. And then basically asking us our interpretation once we're done with the cases. How did it go? What worked well? What can we improve on? And so with our feedback, they're trying to then make it more applicable to a high school level.
All right. Would you guys mind coming up? Would you introduce yourself and then say what it was like as a student to do this new experiment?
Sure. So I'm Colby Pelletier, and I liked the case study a lot because it allowed us to learn in a way that wasn't as hand-holdy as like a textbook or an average lesson would be. So with the case study, sure, it was a lot of reading, but it was actually interesting reading. Like I would prefer to read any case study pretty much compared to 2 pages in a textbook because it actually has interesting information. So with the case study, we're just allowed to like express ourselves much more freely.
Thank you.
I'm Colin Hawkins. I like the case study because the concept behind the progression of it, of starting with yourself and you're reading it and you're getting what you can out of it, and then you progress the next day or 2 days, you go partner groups. So then if a student may be a little nervous or they may be unsure about talking in a group, over time they're having the first time just themselves, and then they're in a partner group. The next day or 2, they're in a group of 5 or so, and then eventually you get the whole class. Building that up over time, over a week or 2, allows them to build up the courage to speak if they may normally not be able to. They may have anxiety about it. I like the experience of, it's not, again, the textbook. It's, you're reading something else that's interesting, and you're, seeing what other people's ideas are that they can give to you. Then you can share other ideas, and it builds on your own knowledge. And I would very much like to do this in the future, and I would like to see other topics on it, not just, what we did here, maybe in other units, other chapters. I'd definitely like to see this again in the future, different subjects. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Tylis. I really like this case study because it was super complex, and going into it, we didn't start with any teacher's help. We did get guiding questions, but we literally went in it on our own. We annotated. We found a deeper depth in the text, and that was really important. And in finding this deeper depth, we could talk to other people in the next step. And then after that, we bounced ideas off of the entire class, and it was really nice. I'd like to see this in the future.
Hello. My name is Miguel Frontera, and the case study, it was interesting and fun at the same time. I definitely enjoyed talking, like having the big class discussion about the meat packing and stuff. It was something, it was a great experience. I feel like if we were to incorporate this more into our school, it would be a very interesting and fun way of learning history, because I see sometimes in classes some students feel like they're having their hand held all the time, being constantly led by the teacher, and then they get bored. But if they're doing it independently, they can go at their own pace, and I feel like that could benefit a lot of students. Thank you.
Thank you all. It is, trying to sell this to the kids at first, I was like, oh, but, these kids that, graduate in, college to read this, and then they talk about it in 90 minutes. I did ask them to take a leap of faith, and I think one of the things that I liked about being a student in the case method when we were there in Boston and a teacher is it's not necessarily, like I said, it's not so much about the history, but the process. And each student doesn't need to be 100%. Each student brings something to the table, and collectively, like we do in a democracy, this was the big sales pitch, so it's very democratic. Collectively, we can all figure it out. And so that's what I really appreciated it, and why I also look forward to doing some more of these in my classroom. Any last words?
And ultimately, it was really interesting seeing the students go from a point when you said this is a Harvard level reading and seeing them all get a little scared at first because it's a higher level reading than what they've been exposed to so far in their education, to then all of a sudden, by the end of it, go, we got this, we're all good, and have a debate and a discussion with each other, and actually be able to, like, accept that I can do this, I got this, I'm able to do something that kids at Harvard are doing currently in their classes right now at an undergrad and a graduate level. And it was just amazing seeing how they kind of lit up at the fact that they feel so much more prepared for these kind of readings as they move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is our Decker.
Hello, I'm Colby Thompson. I am one of the managers at the Falcon's Nest this year. I'm here with Sky and Piper. They're employees at the Falcon's Nest. This year, DECA was fortunate enough to partner with the Life Skills program and bring some of their students in to work at the Falcon's Nest with us. This started in the fall, and how we did this was I had DECA B block, and so most B blocks, students would come down and we would work on skills that would help them work one day in a retail job potentially. And so, would you guys like to explain a little bit of what we did? Yeah, maybe about like the folding clothes. You want to start with that?
Yeah. We would fold clothes and everything, and I think it was really fun because this helped me actually get my job at a retail because I fold clothes and work at the cash register, and it was fun learning.
Piper, what else did we learn? Did we learn on the Square app? What did we use the Square app for? Do you remember?
Going to count the shirts.
We use it, so on the Square app, we were able to track our inventory because that's what we use to complete purchases on. And so whenever someone wanted to buy something, we would pull up the Square app, we would enter in what product they bought, and then use the Square app to swipe their credit card. And through that, we were able to track the inventory, so the number of shirts and pants and stuff that we had, and then also our profit and income that we were making. And then we also worked on some customer service, just about how to deal with customers. If someone wants a certain size shirt, how can we get that for them? They were great with helping us maintain the store. They always made sure all of our clothes were nice and neatly folded and no trash or anything was on the counter because we have a lot of kids come in and just kind of throw things around. So they were great help with us there. And then on December 19th, DECA has partnered with the Life Skills programs across the North Shore, and the students are going to be coming in and competing in a role play. A role play is there will be a judge and then a student, and you'll get a scenario, and the students have to come up with a solution. And so these role plays are going to be retail based, and so you guys are going to be able to use the experience from working in the Falcon's Nest to compete in a DECA competition. So we are really looking forward to that, and we are just very grateful that we've had this opportunity to bring the life skills students into the Falcon's Nest.
Questions for our students and our teachers?
Eric?
I have no questions. I have a few comments. And full disclosure, Sky and Piper are my daughters. And, I can tell what a wonderful experience working with the DECA folks has been. And, Sky's not kidding. Her first job, she just got a week or so ago, was in retail. And I know that what she's learned from you is going to be helpful to her. And I also know that this is not the first time DECA and the life skills students have collaborated. I want to say you worked on an entrepreneurial project either 2 or 3 years ago, and it's a wonderful opportunity for inclusion and learning, and it kind of fits in with everything I've heard here too, beyond just the Decker and life skills, is that all of the stories we've heard tonight are about stretching the scope of what students get exposed to and what they have the chance to learn. And the idea that, we have students sort of interfacing with a method from the Harvard Business School and doing college work while they're in high school, and doing something that's different and honestly probably more interesting and less dry than the sort of traditional way that we teach. And I just think it's fantastic that we're offering many more opportunities. The idea of 12 English electives that give kids a chance to try something different. I mean, I remember, Arthur, you and I think, met in Mr. Patel's sports writing class.
Best class I ever took.
Exactly. So those electives can really give kids a chance to see what things they might be able to do that they don't know about because they don't get a chance to. And I'm impressed by everybody who came up and spoke tonight. Very comfortable in front of a crowd. It took me till 40-something years old before I was that comfortable. And you guys are terrific. The program is terrific. Staff members, Jason, you should be very proud of what these folks are doing for you. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, I was thinking back to, Jason, what you were saying when you started the conversation, which was, why are we learning this? And then you started talking about 1909 meatpacking, and I couldn't answer that to start, but now I guess I understand how it sort of comes full circle. So, I mean, for the students that, in particular, I think did the case method, what did you get out of that in terms of learning? Was it more the process, or did this process help you with the material and understand why it was relevant?
Process of going through the concept of progression, the way that we did it allowed us to learn a lot better than, again, the traditional style of just going and flipping through the textbook with the work.
In the study groups, do you currently do study groups for current classes, or no? Study groups are unique.
In just this class, that I am taking right now, the double block time is the only class that we tried this case study method.
Does the high school use study groups at all, or is that more of a college thing, where you would just go with more of a college thing?
I think so, yeah. They do small group work
Yeah.
in class.
Yeah. Cool.
Not outside.
No, this is great. Thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, just a few things. The page to stage, that was awesome. You have two of the stars from the musical. You guys were phenomenal. That was amazing. And what I thought was really interesting was that you said there were non-actors in class. Like, what's like the percentage of students that hadn't performed anywhere, or really had showed an interest, and what has their reaction been to you guys who are like natural performers?
A lot of it was very excitement, and we were all ready to step into this new zone. But we could all notice that some of the people who aren't actors, who haven't been in that area that we were more kind of timid. And so we definitely worked more with them and more collaboratively, not only with like the actors off the side and then the non-actors, because we wanted them to kind of gain an understanding of what we've gained. And something that Ms. Oscar has also done for us is that even though we've been like acting, singing, been in the performing arts, we're still learning new things that continue to amaze us about that world. And so we're learning the same stuff that the non-actors are learning. It's really cool to see them kind of come out of their shell and realize that they really like this kind of level of originality and performance.
Right. Yeah, because I think it could be intimidating for those that aren't used to it. But to Eric's point, it's another example of inclusion, that you are helping these other students that may not be performers but have some level of interest in it, or just thought, oh, this will be a fun class, to really get engaged in it. And what I saw is kind of a theme with all of you was passion. You all were very passionate about what you spoke about, which is what learning should be about. So that was awesome. I was just curious on the Harvard case study group. Do you see that as, well, first of all, is that for seniors only or no? Oh, you are? Okay. And do you see that being able to be applied to other courses other than history? Yeah.
Yeah, it's to me it was just the idea of having the kids, putting the kids in a decision-making seat, having them see what factors. I think it could lend itself to other fields.
Great. Thank you very much.
Arthur?
Yeah, I could repeat everything that Dave and Eric said, but I know you guys don't want to be here all night, so I'm not going to. But it was great. It was a great presentation. You know, I say this a lot, but the enthusiasm and the you said passion, that's just great to see. And you know, anytime I think that we kind of expand off the usual type of regular classroom stuff, it shows that it's a great thing for the kids. And you know, the whole point I think that you're making is that you learn a lot better when you really have something like this to do. And so it's great, and just great job, all of you, and great job talking in front of us too. It was good.
Yes, great job, everyone. Thank you to the teachers as well. It just shows student voice and choice and student engagement, inclusiveness. I mean, all of these things are wonderful things for all the students, and I applaud you all. You're so professional when you get up here and speak. I, again, would never have been able to do that in high school because you learn it later on in life, but we're doing such an excellent job here in Danvers. You guys did awesome. Question for the life skills in the school store. What was the most popular item that folks were purchasing, if you recall?
I think we sold a lot of Sherpas. We've had to reorganize about like 3 or 4 times.
That's awesome.
We got new crew necks this year. Those
Excellent.
sold out very quickly. But yeah, it's just been a really great experience, and having them in the store has helped so much. I can't even explain.
Yep.
Just being able to help me come in every day has been extremely helpful.
That's awesome. Very good. Well, thank you all for coming this evening.
And for the 3 people watching on DCAT, great idea for holiday gifts. Come to the Falcons Nest and purchase your Falcons wear.
More people watch than you think.
Yeah.
4, sorry.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you. We'll take a moment to transition so that way it's a Monday evening. They can head home.
You mean they don't want to stay and watch the whole meeting?
Yeah. Oh, really?
Why didn't you do full disclosure?
No, I should have. I didn't think of it.
Thank you. So we thought Danvers High had their presentation for Pride presentation this month, and we also received our report from our NEASC, a 2-year report after the visitation, and they have a couple slides to share with us of how it all comes together.
Hello again. So, like Dr. Dana said, so just give a brief update on our 2-year report. So NEASC, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, is an accrediting organization, and they are on a 10-year cycle, or schools are on a 10-year cycle for review. And ours was right before I started at the high school in March of 2017, and we were awarded accreditation that spring. The 2-year follow-up was submitted this fall, and we just got our report recently, so we're going to share out some of the recommendations and next steps from that report. So the way we did it was we organized it and took the recommendations and tried to frame it the best we could under the 3 school goals, which are also aligned to the 3 district goals of social emotional learning, cohesive curriculum, and
Engagement.
student engagement. How could I forget that? So we're going to have members of our leadership team come up and talk about each of those goals. So first up is Mr. Emerly and Mr. DeMauro to talk a little bit about social emotional learning.
So a lot of my work this year is focused on working with the teachers in the Therapeutic Learning Center, the TLC. So part of my goal in working with these teachers who represent a diverse array of content areas, we have an English teacher, a health teacher, a math teacher. We also have a social worker that works in the TLC for 3 out of the 7 blocks. Has been to really formalize the entry plans for students entering the TLC program and make sure the students entering the TLC program really have solid established benchmarks so everyone has the same expectations around what is their participation in the program and how are we all appropriately supporting them as they move through from week to week in the school. So right now we have 14 students that are formally on TLC plans. We have bi-weekly check-in meetings with all the teachers to go over the plans, reassess them, see if any adjustments need to be made. And basically, the plans are made based on the needs of the students. So some students' plans are only on an as-needed basis, so they may only access TLC during the day if it is something that they need on a class-by-class basis. Other students who need more intensive support that may be transitioning back from hospitalizations may have TLC as part of 3 blocks of their schedule, and then after 3 weeks, that level of support can go down. So far, I think it's been really helpful to sort of have those entry plans at the beginning where the student and parent are both involved along with the teachers in the program, and then also reassessing those to go on to make sure that students are progressing and growing and ultimately getting the support that they need to be successful in school.
So I'd just like to talk a little bit about the PASS program, which the acronym stands for Positive Alternative to School Suspension. The PASS program is a partnership between area schools, the North Shore YMCA, the North Shore Consortium, and JRI Behavioral Mental Health. It's basically an alternative to a traditional school suspension. So if there's a suspension at school, say for an infraction, traditional school suspension has the child be out of school at home, usually unmonitored with parents working, okay? And what are they really getting out of that? So this was kind of the brainchild of a lot of administrators, area administrators, the YMCA staff, and the North Shore Consortium, in addition to the mental health, behavioral health components of it. And it's really, the purpose of it is to be more reflective versus punitive. It speaks to just about all of the SEL competencies, components. In particularly, self-awareness is at the center of what we're doing at the PASS program. It's staffed by the YMCA with licensed social workers. There's a set schedule of individual counseling, group counseling, art, music, education, recreational time. And at first, in the very beginning, when students go over there, so if there's an incident here at school, students go over there, they're screened right off the bat for any mental health screens, any substance abuse. They added recently a nicotine addiction screen. All their staff has been trained in nicotine treatment model, as well as mental health, identifying mental health right upon entry into the PASS program. The best part of it, in my opinion, for students coming back is they come back with a very detailed reentry plan. The plan specifically details their accomplishments at the time that they were over there, their participation, and also it identifies strategies that the students can use to address the issues of why they were there in the first place. It also identifies very clearly supports of in-school supports, adults, people that the student has identified that they can trust and support and go to for help when they come back to school, as well as people outside of school, which is traditionally their family members or something of the sort. So as far as the biggest piece of it is really just the change in trying to get students help as opposed to just kind of sending them out without really the supports there. And again, it's just really reflective versus kind of the punitive piece. So that's been a big addition to the high school.
Good evening. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the curricular accommodations and recommendations we received. As you can see earlier, that really illustrated our kind of commitment to innovative teaching practice and pedagogy. We are offering a lot of different cross-disciplinary courses at DHS. I'll give you a little preview. You're going to see some more in the program of studies, which you'll be seeing in January, so stay on the edge of your seats for that. Right now, we've got 3 or 4 currently running, with a couple more wanting to be offered next year. Structurally, the common planning time that we've introduced into the schedule, the vast majority of teachers have common planning time with colleagues of their same content, which allows them to really focus on instruction and student performance, connected with a lot of the FAR cycle work that we've talked about last year, which I know you all are familiar with. We also allow common planning time for our 9th and 10th grade team, so they're able to talk about students and really kind of dig into how students are performing and provide support for those who might need a little more of that, and to bring in outside supports like guidance and social work to be able to support those students. We also structurally invested in the co-teaching piece. We are offering many more co-teaching experiences in math, science, ELA, and social studies. So that's been great for the general education teachers and the special education teachers. We've created some really good teaching partnerships, which allows all students to be supported, but also really can focus on some of the education plans that some of the students have in that space. Earlier, there was a slide about teacher engagement, and I think our staff has been wonderful when providing them space to be creative and innovative. They've really taken us up on that. Sometimes we just provide like an email, oh, this is an opportunity. Like the Harvard case study was an email from me saying, hey, would you guys like to take advantage of that? And 6 people really like that were like, we're really invested and have been really thoughtful about how they approach the work. Some other examples of that is in our world language department, we are really overhauling our practice in that space. We're moving to a proficiency model, which is speaking specifically in the target language. You're not going to hear a lot of English anymore in our French and Spanish classes, which is a change from how even they were trained. So this is a paradigm shift for them as well. And they've really been digging into that work. And students are finding the opportunity to speak and gaining confidence in their speaking skills in their target language very, very helpful. Additionally, we've done some work in ELA with the electives, and those have taken off significantly. The students are really invested at the senior year. And so those opportunities have been plentiful for our students, and staff have really kind of been really innovative with those things. You guys are familiar with the FAR cycle and student success, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. But staff have really been thoughtful about how our students are performing and doing little things along the way to support students to be proficient in whatever content area that might be. And I think we're seeing results on that, on how students are performing on summative assessments. Midterms are coming up in January. I can't believe we're already talking about it. And we're on track, I think, for students to be very successful this school year. And then the other thing that we're going to be working on, we've been having some conversations in earnest about MTSS, which is our multi-tiered systems of supports. This has traditionally been in the wheelhouse of elementary nationwide, but research is indicating that at the secondary level, MTSS can be and should be implemented. So we are beginning to have conversations about what that might look like at the secondary level. There's not a lot of research about what structurally that could look like, but we are really being thoughtful about what makes the most sense for students and having student-centered conversations about those things. So that will be something coming up for sure. And then hand it over to Dr. Palladino.
So for student engagement, the NIESC report highlighted the work around creation of innovation pathways to better achieve. For us, it's really about students to achieve their definition of success, the way that we talk about it with our vision statement, and associated with that, securing some funding to be able to provide some of those opportunities. And in terms of next steps, it's definitely around building the capacity, continuing to scale the programs. From all the presentations you heard this evening, I think we're really proud of the work that our teachers and students do. We have a lot of the pieces in place. So for innovation pathways, it's really around cohesion and putting those pieces together. So one example is a big part of it is work-based learning experiences. And so we have our internship program, and we've made strides in making sure that internships that students take are aligned to their college interest and career interest, but to be able to continue to build that support. So it's not even like end of junior, beginning of senior year when they're talking about that, but they're talking about what are their career interests starting in 9th grade. We have them here. Why not have those conversations get started and really backwards plan, kind of like curriculum design. We're starting with not what college do you want to go to, which probably was how I think when I was applying to college, I thought about it, right? A lot of us. But kind of what do you want to do? And it doesn't mean you have to set and pick one specific occupation, but just what do you want to do broadly? What's your personality like? How do you learn? What's a good match for you? And if you go through one of these pathways and find out it's not the sector for you, I think that's a success. That's a celebration. To find that out before you go into a college and make a huge, substantial investment in yourself and in your community before doing that. So we are almost 2 years into the planning process. This is year 1 for implementation. We're taking it one class at a time. So the class of 2023 is starting with the innovation pathways. We have 5 that have state designation up on the board. And then we had 2 different task forces comprised of teachers and administrators. We included site visits to schools in San Diego, Nashville, and as close as Dearborn Academy in Newton to find out more about pathways and how other schools are working with it and thinking about it. And we also came up with 2 more because we wanted it to be really broad so every student had something that would be interesting to them, right? So we came up with, the task force came up with performing in fine arts and civic engagement in public policy as 2 additional industry sectors that would be pathways. It's just not designated by the state because there's not a high need. Doesn't mean that they're not important, just not right now. There's not a current there's not going to be a huge gap in those fields. Those other 5 are right at the top for our specific area where we need some workforce development. And with that, I think we'll leave it up for questions.
Thank you. Arthur?
No, I don't really have any questions. It looks like we're really, working at what the ask is looking at, and when we're really doing it in a methodical and positive way, and just keep it up. But it's obviously we're doing well, and just keep it going.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, just a couple questions on these pathways, Jason. Early college, is that the program designed for high school students to take college classes to be able to kind of matriculate earlier?
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. So it's under the umbrella of high quality of college and career pathways. So 2 of those are, one is innovation pathways, another one's early college. Right now we're in the planning stages with North Shore. That program, if we get designation, would allow students to earn up to 12 college credits or more before they graduate high school.
And that would be in addition to any AP courses they might take and
Correct.
score highly enough to get
Yes.
those waived.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it would be, right now we're looking at a possible, it would be North Shore credit if that program goes through and we're able to implement that.
Right. And so would those courses be taught here, or would the students go to North Shore, or is that to be determined?
To be determined. Right now we're looking at possibly a hybrid model, so a little bit of both.
Okay, great.
Some online learning, some instruction at both sites.
Okay, great. And would those only be available senior year?
Nope, they'd start as early as we're still working those details out. It would start either more than likely spring of either 9th or 10th grade.
Okay. So obviously we'd have to look at some transportation issues then.
Absolutely.
Non-drivers.
Yep.
Okay, great. And then I just had a couple questions about the TLC and PASS program. I think they're both awesome. I'm just wondering, the TLC program in particular, have we noticed since we've implemented that any change to our chronic attendance issue, which is not just here, but everywhere?
A lot of our students who are on plans, probably about 50% or so, are students who were chronically absent due to their mental health capacities at the time. So our goal is just to get them at school. So as part of their plans, if they're able to get to school and if they need to be at TLC for the entire day, that is usually an entry point that they'll be able to access, and then to slowly start getting them back into the classes as soon as they're able to. So it has certainly helped in a part of our caseload, getting them on those plans and working with their parents to be able to access the support we have in that program.
And what's the reception been of the program now that we've had it for a little over a year now, right? From both students and from parents, is there any stigma attached to it, or are people thankful that we have it and look at it as the resource that it is?
I think certainly from the teachers I work with in the TLC and the parents, that they see what a wonderful resource it is. I think there is still some work to be done with a lot of the teachers that aren't as closely involved in the TLC. When we're halfway through the year, I would love to present sort of at a faculty meeting some of the students we worked with anonymously, just so they can sort of see the progress that they have made and have that external investment that we have been able to see working so closely with those students.
Great, that's awesome. And then for the PASS students, do we have rough idea or a number of kids that we send to the program? And is there a limit? Can they be repeat offenders, so to speak? Or can they only go to pass, 3 times and then they're done?
Sure. Right now, through this school year, I believe we sent 21 students over to the PASS program this year in lieu of kind of being at home for suspension.
Yeah.
You can go back to the PATH program. It's not the intent of it. The YMCA offers students a free membership to the local YMCA for both Beverly and Danvers if you do not return. As part of kind of their exit plan, if a student has identified as wanting to get more physical activity or wanting kind of a safe place to go after school,
Yeah.
the YMCA will give them a 10-month-long membership, and if this, as kind of an incentive to it, if the student does return, then the student loses that. That's kind of a new piece. So
Yeah.
in the past, Dave, students have gone back, yes, but it's really not, through the reflective piece, it's not the goal of it.
Right. That's awesome that the Ys do that. That's, they're a great partner for a lot of organizations, so they should, get credit for doing that.
And they've been an amazing partner. I didn't mention it, but where the students go is actually a YMCA-owned building in Beverly, right behind the Beverly Depot train station. So, for example, other schools, say Lynn, for example, or Gloucester, their students get a bus pass, and it's probably 50 yards from the train station. So the YMCA has really been an amazing partner for the Danvers High.
It makes so much more sense than sending kids to sit on the couch at home, like you said, with parents that are working, and, just reflecting in the negativity as opposed to being part of this program and hopefully getting, if they're there, it's for a reason. So hopefully they're getting the support they need to be able to come back to school and, and participate and do all of that.
Yeah, we've gotten good feedback from parents as well who have participated, and kids who have gone over who, upon reentering to the high school, I've gone over the reentry plan with them, shared it with teachers. They've reflected upon what got them there in the first place, what they learned, and again, strategies to kind of transition back to school.
Great. And then just last question, back to the TLC program. How many kids do we see using that program?
So right now we have about 14 students that have formal plans that can access it based on their benchmarks. At any given time, there's usually between 2 to 5 students in the TLC per block.
Right.
Depending on when they're able to be in there.
Okay. That's great. I thought you were going to give me a bigger number with all of the anxiety and, everything that, teenagers are dealing with today. So that's great. I think they're both great programs. Thank you very much.
All set? Joe?
Oh, yes, I'm done. Sorry.
Jay.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Just a quick question. Were these programs instituted as a result of the NESAC request, or were we going to do them kind of anyway, or had we planned on doing them anyway? Okay.
Yeah, and PASS came up as a collaborative from kind of like from the outside. They were presented as an opportunity that we could join, and we're really happy that we did. So I don't think that either one directly came from the ask.
Okay. I was looking at some of the other ones. So this was a 2-year follow-up report based on their recommendations, and then we have a 5-year report, and then we'll have another 10-year. Do they give us feedback then on our report? Do they say, okay, yeah, this looks good, this looks like you're going to do well?
So that's linked in with the agenda, and that was kind of like each table in the slide, those commendations and next steps, those were based off of the report as well. Yep.
Oh, that was their feedback to us?
Yep.
Oh.
We also have the letter attached to your agenda also.
Gotcha,
for
okay.
you.
Yep.
All right, perfect. Good. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just say the PASS program, I agree with everything that's been said. It makes an awful lot of sense because I'm assuming we don't look to suspend people unless there's a really good reason, which means they probably need some sort of intervention to get them back on track. So the PASS program makes perfect sense in that regard. On the high-quality college and career pathways, from a practical standpoint, what's a student's day look like when they're involved in one of those pathway projects?
It looks almost the same. So it's structurally, it's not really any big changes to like classes they're taking. It fits within. We do we have an awesome foundation for like a liberal arts traditional high school curriculum that's in place. So I think we want to make sure that we keep talking about that because that's so important. Like our graduation levels are high, our requirements are really high. We have a really strong liberal arts education. So it's really going to be around advising and around then particular courses, but it won't interfere with taking other things. So we've mapped it out in terms of some scope and sequences because a lot of them, if you take healthcare, for instance, a lot of them are going to count for a science or math class. It's still going to count as a graduation requirement, but it will be kind of tailored toward a specific industry sector, if that makes sense. And the ninth graders this year, guidance counselors with Sean have been working a lot on MyCap, which is around my career and academic plan. So that's around those conversations in advisory. They've been working on beginning to identify what career they're interested in, what their personality, like they took a personality test and then working on where some good matches are.
Sure. So if, and again, I have no idea if this makes any sense or not, but say someone were to take a healthcare pathway, is there a way that they would get a designation, a certificate or something, so if they decide to apply to the Salem State Nursing Program, and that they can say, hey, this is what I've done already, this demonstrates my true interest in the program?
Yep, and that's part of the work. That's part of the work that that we're still working on too, in terms of like industry recognized credentials too.
Okay.
So those count in terms of like for information. We don't have this, but in terms of like the Cisco licenses or
Sure.
To be able to do training like that to give students opportunities. That's something that we're continuing to build. Right now, our primary one is we have a really, from our point of view, pretty impressive array of AP course offerings.
Yep.
To be able to work on college credit. And part of the credentialing, too, would be the internship experiences and also being able to get into associate and bachelor programs.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very good. I agree, the TLC program, the PASS program, awesome. And I'm glad we're able to have it here in Danvers. So thank you to the administration and to the teachers and the staff for supporting it as well. But I can't believe it's been 2 years already since we got NEASC. So that's crazy. But thank you. Thank you for the presentation tonight.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Great. Thank you. Next, we have our annual Wellness Committee report, and Andy St. Pierre, as the co-chair, will provide us with an annual update.
Good evening, everyone. Just go through a quick rundown of what we've been doing in the Wellness Committee meetings. We meet 4 times a year, as you know. Beginning in the fall, we start off with Atlas and Athena with a quick update of that program. If it's the program we have to sort of mentor the incoming freshman student athletes in the fall. We pair them up with in a small group of 8 or 10 kids with a junior or senior upper class student athlete, just to go through the different things that these kids are going to face once they get up here at this level: drugs and alcohol, nutrition, diet, exercise, things like that. Vaping was a big component of that this year. That's sort of the new trend, not so new anymore, but it's a big issue that a lot of kids are facing. So they adjusted the program a little to talk more about vaping and sort of the exposure and what it is, and sort of just get these kids sort of prepped for what's coming in the next 4 years of high school. Then we reviewed the general wellness policy, as we always do. We talked a little about positive youth development, things such as Catch My Breath, the anti-vaping campaign, and Why You Matter campaign that was heavily publicized last year as well. In November, we talked, we shifted gears a little bit and talked about the impact testing that we do here for all of our student athletes. We reviewed the concussion policy, as we always do, and we'll talk a little about the youth risk behavior survey that will be administered in the spring, this coming spring. In January, we'll have a food service update from Mr. Tom Powers. We'll talk about the chemical health policy, review that as we always do. That's the drugs and alcohol and substance policy for student athletes. We'll talk about the vaping initiative. And then in the last meeting, we'll have an update on SBIRT screening, which sort of gauges likelihood of substance abuse, drug and alcohol substance abuse for young people here in school. And then we'll discuss EpiPens, CPR trainings, AEDs, and we'll get an update on Narcan, which is a new sort of initiative throughout the town right now. And then finally, we'll sort of wrap up with Light the Night Purple, which is the big walk we do every May. So that's sort of where we are. It's a quick update for you, but open up to any questions.
Excellent. Jeff?
No, I mean, work obviously a lot with you on the Danvers Cares initiative. So it's really good to see the community a big part of this as well, and their support throughout, every part of the town as well. So glad to see that partnership and support. Look forward to the next year. Thanks.
Dave?
No, I attend the meeting, so I don't have any questions.
I listened to these two, so I don't have any questions either. Thanks, Andy.
I'm all set.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much for the update. Lots of stuff going on all year round. And I'm, again, very thankful we have this committee. And this is for the whole school district, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. So next we have Mr. Lieberman and Dr. Tatum, who the title of their presentation is Emerging Technologies to Support Student Accessibility, and some work through Google and an organization, Brainpower, that has been working with Jeff and Mary and some of our faculty and our students.
Thank you. Good evening. It's hard to compete against the Harvard Business School. But bear with us. I know in August, Dr. Dana shared with you an article that was published in the Hechinger Report that focused on how the Danvers Public Schools is using virtual reality to help our students who have autism spectrum disorder and attention deficit disorder. Tonight, I want to provide you a little more detail about 3 emerging technologies that we're looking at for students with disability and accessibility issues, and then give you some time to ask some questions afterwards. The first emerging technology I want to talk a little bit about was what the article talked about was virtual reality, and 2 forms of virtual reality. One is in-house virtual reality production, and the second is outside produced virtual reality productions that we're looking at, and what the difference between those 2 are for us. The first one is what the article talked about was the tours that we're making in-house for our students who have some transition issues and transition anxiety. We had one of our student interns this summer produce 2 tours. One is a tour in the high school itself, which I'm going to ask Mary to pull up for you in a second, and she's going to do a little virtual touring with you. And the other was the annual walk that the students in the life skills program take from Danvers High School to downtown Danvers, where some of those students have never really taken that walk without their parents or even taken that walk alone and have some transition anxiety issues about it. So we created a virtual reality tour for them to do it in advance without having to leave the building, have support right next to them, and be able to actually do it over and over again until they felt comfortable with it. Mary, do you want to pull up the virtual high school tour? The in-house productions that we can do with Google actually allow students to use this either on their Chromebooks or with the virtual reality kits that the teachers at the high school got through DEEP and the middle school got through DEEP. If you do it on a Chromebook, Mary will actually pull you around so you see that you can actually make it 3D. Mary, why don't you go to like slide 3 or 4? We're actually inside the building. There we go. And Mary can actually pull around with her mouse or trackpad.
Maybe a little
try,
motion sickness.
and see what it looks like, so that if you're standing here in the atrium, you can move around the atrium. If you're wearing the goggles, actually, as you walk around with the goggles on, it makes you see everything that's in the same room. So it really gives you that sense of what that transition would be like for you and how you would actually feel when you went through the transition itself. So it gives you a little idea of what we can produce in-house. The video production teacher in the high school has actually taken a course on how to use the 3D camera that we purchased through this, and she's going to have her students start doing more 3D videos to be able to help some of these students that might need this for a variety of reasons. Mary, can we go back to the slide show now?
Yeah.
Great. The second kind of production, which is outside producers, one that we're looking at for our students, is a company called Florio, which makes several programs that work with transitioning that students need to do. So one of them is, how do you cross the street? What happens when you come to a street light? I talk a little bit about the walk from the high school downtown. A lot of students can't do this alone, but this helps them go through it. It has 3 or 4 scenarios within the virtual reality itself, either when there's no traffic and only pedestrians, when there is traffic, when there's a mixture of things. It allows them to do that. A big one is public safety. How do you interact if you're stopped by a police officer? How do you interact when you're going through the TSA at an airport? This is really anxiety producing for some students, and this gives them the opportunity to interact in a variety of situations that are virtual, not real yet, so that when they get into those real situations, they really have experience of interacting and already understanding what that is. And the one that I think is really important, that I like the best, and I'd like to use myself, is what do you do when you're in a situation that you have to wait at a train station? A train is coming, but you were really waiting for it for a long time. You don't have the patience. If you're in a line at a supermarket, how do you use mindfulness techniques to calm yourself down, to wait, to be ready for what's going to happen, and not really get upset about it, so that it really gives you calming down. The Florio programs require a little different equipment than we already own. We've been able to get some from the company that we're going to begin trying in our life skills classrooms in the next couple of weeks. So we're almost ready to go with that, and then we'll see if it's something that we really want to purchase. The last middle technology is one that I'm going to have Dr. Tatum talk about, which are wearables, and in our particular case is Google Glass and a company called BrainPower. We have several actually Google Glass sets in the district now to use, and I'll let Dr. Tatum tell you about how we're going to use those.
So we started working with BrainPower last school year. We went down to Boston. We had a little training with them on how to use these glasses. They're very cool. They have a little camera in there and a little computer. So you can do this variety of apps. Two of the apps that we were most interested in, something similar to what Jeff was talking about in regard to the tour. So there is an ability for these glasses you can tour a space that you haven't been in yet, so that you can get used to it through these glasses. So, and the other app that we were very interested in was called Face to Face. So when you are with a partner, you can start to understand their social nuances and start understanding what their facial expressions mean. And it's real because you're actually looking at a person and not pictures. So those are the two that we were super duper interested in trying out. And we decided to try these out in our Holton Richmond Middle School. So last year we got the technology up and going sometime in the spring, I think. And we had BrainPower come and do a training with our social worker and some guidance counselors and some of the paraprofessionals that work with a few students that we thought might do well with this. It's very fledgling. We really just started trying it out last year. And we didn't start it yet this year. We had Jeff created a huge, I don't know if you know about it, but we had this giant conference here at Holton Richmond Middle School in the beginning of November. And lots of people came to discuss all these fun, really cool technology things. And we found that the elementary school in Middleton is in the exact same boat as we are in regard to the Google Glass. So we were invited over there to see how they're using it with the elementary students, excepting when we got invited to go, that it stopped working. So they called us and canceled. So we're going to go back in a couple of weeks when they get started working again. And I spoke with BrainPower, and they're going to come back with no extra charge to us and really give us some really in-depth PD so that we really understand how to use this well before we start practicing it on students. But that's our intent for the spring, and we're pretty excited about it.
The last emerging technology that we're just beginning to look at is called social robots. At the conference Mary mentioned, we had a company called Robots for Autism come up with a robot that they used, whose name is Milo. And what Milo does is he creates social interactions with students who really don't have social interactions yet, or are afraid of having social interactions. And they have some base research that shows how students will interact with a robot versus a person. These robots talk like people, they respond like people, but they're not people. Students will actually go and give them hugs at the end of sessions. It's very interesting, but we're watching this to see how the research plays on this, and it's another technology that we might be looking at to use for our students who might need this kind of engagement. So these are the three that we've been looking at. And if you have any questions, Mary and I would be more than happy to answer them.
Dave?
Just a question on this last one. They all sound very cool, but the social robot seems like it really would be designed for kids that have severe autism, if they're nonverbal and all that. Are we dealing with many of those children, or are those typically the children that are being outplaced to a school that specializes in it and give them the most help?
Well, we actually are, working with students with more and more severe disabilities in autism. And we have created some programs here in Danvers over the years that have allowed us to not send students out if we can help it and have the students be here. So we do have a couple of programs that have students with very severe autism or other developmental disabilities and don't have verbal abilities or really are very sensitive to interactions with others. So, yeah.
That would be my only concern is, are we investing in this technology for a really small number of students that maybe aren't best served in the district anyways?
It's possible that this robot would not be something that we would want to go with until we see how the research goes and if it really does make any sense.
Okay.
The other two, though, I think would be successful with tons of
Lots of applications, yeah.
And then to respond to the financial part, the cost for the other two is not high. It's very low ceiling. So.
Okay, great, thank you.
Arthur?
Yeah, it's great. I'd like to actually see how these things work someday. But I guess it's it's really good to be able to use this emerging technology for whatever we can. And obviously, I think it's also important to try various things and see if they do work, and if they don't work, we can go in a different direction. But there's so much out there, and you need to test what works and what doesn't work. So it's great information, and again, I think it provides a lot of help to people that really need it. So thanks for the presentation.
Eric?
I think that these items, these tools, basically allow us to interact very individually with the students who have a specific need. So in that respect, I think they're terrific. And I'm sure you're always doing a, cost-benefit analysis as to what we really need and how many and what's the investment we're willing to make. I'm trying to get my arms around the fact that we have our students talking to robots, and I'm still hoping to get the DVR set right. So, wow.
What is that?
Wow. I yield back the balance of my time.
Jeff?
No, this is great, and I'm looking and seeing the applications. So, is the goal of most of these to offer an experience that is currently not available, or is it typically used to do something that we would have to do manually? So, for example, the tour, walking downtown. Maybe a nice sunny day, would we normally try to take students outside to go for a walk, or would we say we couldn't?
This is pre-walk. So this is to get them accustomed to what would take place along the walk, to lower anxieties levels, and to get them to be able to transition to leave the building by themselves and take this walk.
Because
So
before you wouldn't be able to, you would just take them
They
out.
would take them out. They would,
Okay.
They could explain to them, but they couldn't actually experience in any way.
Okay.
So this is a virtual experience for them before they actually do the walk. Or even, we know the students do all transition from the middle school to the high school, elementary school to the middle school. That transition will take place. The question is, can we lower certain anxieties in certain students who have to make that transition by creating a virtual environment in advance that they could actually use, and it's low cost.
So we identify these situations, I'm guessing, by some sort of assessment of the most stressful or anxiety situations that students would face.
So for most students with autism, severe or not, some of the symptoms that go along with that is difficulty in transition, whatever that may mean, whatever transition, any transition.
Yeah.
So in the past, before this sort of cool technology, we would prepare students for transition by perhaps pictures. You would either go around and take pictures of the new environment or another environment or whatever, or we would have to download pictures and kind of put it on an array board. So this takes the place of that and is so much more real. And it desensitizes people who have difficulty with this sort of task and this sort of next step in their lives, to enable them to not have difficulty with whatever transition it is that they're going to. So it could be another class. It could be, another school, another town. So this kind of enables us to do that for them.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, this would be great for something like, not exactly, I'm thinking of things that cause anxiety and stress and standardized testing and things like that. I don't, I'd love to
You
see
could
something like
prepare
that
them for
available
that,
too, right? Yeah, that to me, when you talk about anxiety and stress for a lot of students, we're talking about that a lot now, how do we handle that? It's completely different. This is VR and movement and actually walking, which I think is terrific.
It's also an interesting application to use for kids with some visual impairments that have really difficulty going up and down stairs. And depth perception. This is also something that can help with that as well. So it can expand its possibilities with different kinds of abilities.
Yeah, because we do have a couple schools that will have, Smith will have a couple different levels and stairs too. So, perfect. Thank you.
So just a couple questions. The Google Glass, does that work off of Wi-Fi?
Yes.
And what are you able to do with it again? Like, is it similar to the?
What apps you choose, but the ones that we've chosen that we are particularly interested in is the ones where it's sort of like the tour that Mary and Jeff were showing you, but it's in these little glasses.
Okay.
In the camera there, and the other one is the face-to-face, where.
Oh, right. It reads.
Yeah, and so you would be there in front of me, and this computer would cue me as to what your facial expression means.
It would pop up and say like happy, like she's
Even
happy.
though Florio has something similar in the virtual reality, the one with the Google Glasses actually allows both people to see each other's eyes, which is very important for children on the ASD spectrum, because very often they're looking down, they don't make eye contact with you, and the goal for the person working with a student is to make sure that they begin that eye contact to begin that social interaction. So the glass allows them to see each other versus being in a virtual environment where you don't know what the student is seeing. So those are the two sides to why you might use one versus the other.
And just go back to the Florio. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Florio.
So is that similar to the virtual reality where
It is virtual reality. It works. The virtual reality kits that we have in both schools work on an Android system and they work on a Mac OS system. So they're just.
Which does the Florio?
Yeah,
Works
Florio,
on.
right.
Okay.
So that's the difference in the equipment. But
Just the
otherwise, they're both the same. They both work and create a virtual environment that brings you somewhere else that you can actually move around. So in the non-student services side of this, social studies department, history, they all use the virtual reality to take students to another place. And this is what it actually does. It takes you to a different environment, to a different place, to a different situation that you can use that isn't real, but get you accustomed to that situation.
And what else? Nope, I think that was all I had. They're all great options for different ways of learning and totally understand the transitioning pieces of it. Going from just one classroom to the classroom next door is a anxiety-filled transition for some students. So to be able to show them ahead of time, this is actually what it looks like. Because as a parent, when you're trying to explain to the kids what the transition will be, they're not really listening or understanding it in words, but to see it in pictures for some is a lot easier. So, no, that's great, and it's great that the virtual reality goggles are able to do multiple things. So not just taking you to Egypt, but it's you can create internally tours or whatever you need to create for the students. So, very good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And then our last two items are short updates from Mary first on strategic plan.
Yes. So going to give you a quick update on the strategic plan. So we've been doing some work in each of the areas on just safe and supportive learning environments. We have two different teams that are working on social emotional learning. One team is working on providing the adults in our school communities professional development around the 5 social emotional learning competencies. So that continues. It builds off our opening day activities. So I have a team of 15 people working, and they represent teachers from across the schools. We work together to do some of the activities and talk about how to debrief them, and then we go out during the early release days and work with teachers on that. The second team is our steering committee. So that committee is actually working, we'll meet on Wednesday, and we're going to start to discuss programming for social emotional learning for students. And we have lots of different things happening across the district, but now we're really working on the coherence and really getting a K-12 coherence and then coherence across the elementary schools. So we'll be meeting several times across the year to discuss that and be ready to roll out in the fall. In coherent curriculum and instruction and assessment, we've been working with the Essex County Learning Community, and they've provided us with a 3-day workshop series around universal design for learning. So I think you've heard about that in the past, that we universally design lessons so it meets the needs for all learners by starting to do the planning from the working at the margins. So kids that need a lot of support to access the curriculum and kids that really need to be pushed further and really extend their learning. So by designing lessons that meet those students' needs, that you really are meeting the needs of all kids. So we have our last workshop on Friday, and we're looking forward to coming back and really starting to work with teachers to apply that. That would be, if you were looking at the MTSS that Jason was showing you earlier, that would be in our Tier 1 instruction for all teachers. So really looking for inclusive environments that use that type of lesson planning. And then finally, under engaged students, we been working with the company called PBL Works. They came this summer to do the project-based learning units, and you heard you've heard a presentation at Holton Richmond that many of the teachers were there this summer and are implementing those projects. So they'll be giving technical assistance virtually online to the teachers starting in January of 2020. So that's my update. I look forward to next meeting in January in the new year. We're going to bring our team of teachers that have been working on the Essex County Learning Community Grant, because that's coming to a close. So to give you a little update of how they've really been helping us move the strategic plan forward.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for Mary? Eric?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, we have our facilities update.
The next Smith Building Committee meeting is on Friday morning at 8 o'clock at Town Hall. Over the past month, they've started to dig foundations on site. So the first concrete trucks will start rolling on Friday. So this will be an exciting time as the building actually starts to come out of the ground somewhat, getting into the winter. It's actually been amazing to see them plow an entire construction site and then move the snow out of the way to make sure it melted quick enough so that work was not delayed.
You spend a lot of time over there? You sound like they're watching it all the time.
I mean, I do, right? I like trucks, so. And I get to call it work, so why wouldn't I, Arthur?
Good. So those are all of the items from information from the superintendent, and we thank you for that time in our high school team this evening, and then Mary and Jeff and Andy for their presentations. So we can take a moment for our administrators to transition also, so they'll be ready for their day also tomorrow. We have no unfinished business for this meeting, so we'll move into the school committee's new business.
Okay, new business, annual review, superintendent evaluation. So, Lisa was able to provide us with her portfolio of items over the past year, things that she's done, updates to things, as well as links to all the presentations that we've seen over the year. And then we were all given an evaluation form for superintendent. So I don't, if we want to each individually go through and just read a summary of what the evaluations were. I believe that's what we've done in the past. Who would like to start? Dave?
Sure. I don't necessarily think I'll read my summary because it's pretty much the same as last year. So you can dig up last year's DCAT meeting and look at that, which I think is a good thing because my rating was proficient. I think Lisa's doing an excellent job, just as I did last year. I still struggle with this because, proficient doesn't sound like enough, but that's the target is proficient. To get exemplary, you have to I don't know what you have to do, but it seems pretty impossible for that. So definitely proficient rating. But what I wanted to comment on a little more is, I've always thought we have a great school system. I thought Lisa's been a great leader of our district for many years now. One of the longest tenured superintendents on the North Shore, if not throughout the Commonwealth, which I think says a lot. But when I was down last month at the in Hyannis for the Mass Association of School Committee and Mass Association of Superintendents combined conference, I was just really impressed with how many other superintendents, business managers, other school committee members, how favorably they talked about Danvers and what a good district it is. And then more recently, I was having a conversation with a local superintendent, and she said, I told her that I was on the Danvers School Committee, and she said that Danvers is their model. That one day, they're a smaller district than us, but one day they want to grow up and be like Danvers. So I think that says a lot. That she singled out Lisa specifically about being a mentor, and I got that same feeling from the conference that a lot of other superintendents look to Lisa for guidance quite often. So I'm just very happy with the way things are going. Obviously, there's room for improvement in any district. It wouldn't be possible to have a perfect district, but I am very happy with the way things are going and the way Lisa is leading the district. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Arthur?
Well, I'll just say that I think the district is well run. I think the focus is always on the kids. And I think that if you watch our meetings and spend any time looking at what happens here, you'll see that we're always striving to improve. And not just when we have issues, but we do attack the issues, but also just in general. And I don't really think, I think that's what we need to do. And so I don't know what I'm going to do with the form, but I will say that that I think I'm happy with, as Dave says, I'm happy with the job that you do. I'm happy that you continue to do it, and look forward to working with you for as many more years as I stay on this committee, which will only be two.
Seems to be endless.
Will only be two.
No. Thank you.
Thanks.
Jeff?
Yeah, I echo a lot of the same sentiments. My assessments are in line, I would say, with your self-assessment. And I've said that the past couple of years, and I thought, well, it's kind of a testament to how well you know yourself and where we're trying to do. So it's, professional practice met, student learning significant progress, district improvement met, and then on the rubrics, proficient in instructional leadership, proficient management and operations, proficient in all of them. And I do agree with Dave, too. There's certainly a lot of those you could say exceeds in certain areas, too. And I can go into a little bit more detail on those in a future date. I think I do it more on a regular basis in the meetings, right? This is when we sort of say it. But I will just highlight, so in addition to this sort of self-assessment, self-awareness, which I think is a great trait, the, reactions that we have when new information, new challenges come at us, I think is another key point that cannot be understated for you as well. There's so much coming at us all the time from different constituencies, not just educational constituencies, I think, which Dave talked about, but the rest of the community. And you really see that in like Danvers Cares, and you see it amongst others, right? Police, fire, town manager, everyone that we work with, has a positive, a positive perception of our schools and certainly of your leadership. So that has to be taken into account, has to be noted as well. And then the last piece is just complexity. We talk about goals, and there's so many goals, and there are so many rubrics, and there's so many students with, as we talked about before, individual challenges that, every student has to be looked at individually, and they just don't have one issue. I mean, it would be great just to look at one student individually, but that student is a piece of something else. And so that student is in band, and then that student travels, but maybe they have an issue with math, and then they, have anxiety, right? So you can't even just look at one student. You have to formulate an entire program to deal with that. And so that's what I, in particular, appreciate is you do have a student-centered focus, but it's within the construct of what we have to deal with. And so, yeah, are there improvement areas we need? Yeah, certainly. But overall, I'm happy with where we're going, where the progress is, and look forward to everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I wrote a lot. I'm going to try and sort of self-edit, and you can read the comments as they come up. But just a comment about and this sort of echoes what Dave said a little bit. I've rated you proficient. It's almost impossible, it seems to me, given the number of areas that we're supposed to consider and rate for almost any superintendent. I don't know how a superintendent with this particular tool could get exemplary. There's subjective, there's some objective pieces. And the other comment I would make about the tool is that I understand the DES, he wants to try and have a robust evaluation. But many of the areas they want us to look at, we would almost have to follow you around several days a month or 5 days a week to really understand, be able to say, yeah, this is a meets versus a need. So I find the task somewhat difficult, and I end up looking at sort of an overall impression I get based on what I see on a monthly basis at our meetings, interactions with folks in the community, interactions with you and other members of the team, and my own observations. So again, based on that, yes, I have rated you proficient, which I think is essentially how you rate yourself. And based on the tool, I think that actually shows a very good performance. Because to be exemplary would be almost impossible. Having said that, just for a little bit of detail, let's see, yes. So in terms of the professional practice goal, I actually think you underrated yourself a little bit there. I had you as an exceeds on the professional practice goal, which really was around the implementation of the social and emotional learning piece. And I, having been part of the process last year, it seemed that it was the way you implemented it was well thought out, and it's not just you, it's your staff. All of this, as you know, applies to your team too. But ultimately, you lead the team, you motivate the team, you set the direction for the team. So when the team does well, I think you deserve the credit. And when the team doesn't do so well, obviously, you end up taking the responsibility for finding ways to improve. So basically, I thought the way that was implemented, planned, the resources that you used, the way you involved the community in the process was excellent, and I really thought you exceeded that goal. In terms of the student learning goals, I tend to agree with you that there's significant progress, but there's always a way to go. I mean, our test scores are around the state average, and I don't necessarily think that's a place we are going to stay or necessarily want to stay. On the other hand, it may be a reflection of the realities of the community and communities around us and resources. But having said that, I think there's a lot of good stuff going on when you see the number of students who are taking AP courses and our results, SAT results, PSAT results, lots of opportunities, but we're never going to be perfect in terms, the day we say we have achieved our student learning goal, it's probably the day someone needs to take a real look at what we're doing, because there's always another step to take. There's always another thing we can do to benefit students. But as you saw from the high school presentation tonight, I'm amazed at the steps we're taking, the new things that we are doing, the new opportunities we're trying to give students. Goal number 3, I had you meet, so overall proficient. I thought on the standards of all leadership areas that the performance was proficient. I did want to say that I wanted to highlight some areas where I thought you stood out within the framework of this assessment. And I've been impressed, and I think Arthur mentioned the same thing about the enthusiasm and dedication of the students and staff. And I think that goes to the motivation, but also the hiring and the onboarding and the mentoring programs that are in place here. I think when I see the quality of some of the quality of the newer educators coming in, their enthusiasm, the effort they put in, and the way that they are being mentored by teachers who've been in this district longer is a testament to everything that you're doing. I also think that I've seen an increased effort and improvement over many years in terms of your efforts to involve the community in the school system, and the community focus groups for strategic planning and the rollout of the SEL program are two examples of that. So in summary, I believe along with your professional skills, which are considerable, you have shown a commitment to the schools and the town of Danvers that is not seen in every district. And I think, Dave, that's what you experienced when you're at the statewide meeting, and that's what you guys are seeing down there. I think your long tenure as a teacher, administrator, and superintendent in this district has brought stability and a consistent vision that doesn't change every 2 or 3 years. We grow on that vision that's established. And so I think your commitment sets an example for the other professionals in our district. And while we're always looking for ways to improve our performance, and I know you're always looking for ways to improve your own performance, I think we're always trying to come up with better ways to meet student needs. We never stand still, and I believe your leadership is critical in the way that we've been able to expose our students to more opportunities. So just keep doing what you're doing. I think we're really lucky to have you, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will agree, or when I was with Dave down at the conference, I believe there's one other superintendent in the state that has been in his district longer, and I think it's only by 1 year. So other school committee members were like, wow, you're really fortunate to have a superintendent for, as long as you have. So on my assessment, I've rated you overall proficient. And again, on the professional practice goals, you had met your goal. The student learning, again, yes, significant progress has been made. And the district improvement goals have been met. So overall, I'm just going to read a summative of what I feel you've done for the district. So through the development of the new 5-year strategic plan for the Danvers Public Schools, Dr. Dana has shown a commitment to advancing the school district for the future by working closely with her administrative team, faculty, staff, and the community. By prioritizing the 2 pillars of SEL and student engagement, Dr. Dana has been able to make sure that beliefs and structures are in place to support all students in the Danvers Public Schools. Dr. Dana's visibility in the community and at events and activities throughout the year shows her commitment and dedication to the Danvers community. Dr. Dana's involvement with community organizations, including Danvers Cares, DEEP, the North Shore Education Consortium, and MASS, has helped the Danvers Public Schools to tell our story. Dr. Dana has worked collaboratively with her administrative team, faculty, town departments, and the community to help make the groundbreaking of the new Smith School a reality and a success. Dr. Dana continues to work hard for the Danvers Public Schools and the community by promoting the district's core values of caring, quality, commitment, and collaboration. There were significant improvements this year in student learning. I expect the next year the district and community will see a continuation of growth and student achievement for all students. And I continue to believe that the Danvers Public Schools community is fortunate to have such a hardworking, visible, and caring superintendent leading this district.
Thank you.
So I, again, commend you for your work and your dedication to the district, and thank you.
Thank you.
So while we were down at the conference, there was a presentation on superintendent evaluations because the form has been revised. I don't know if you noticed it, there's a little bit more, and the presentation was given by folks on both sides, the Superintendent's Association and the School Committee Association. And there were some good points to the evaluation system. So yes, how do we rate all of these? Like you said, Eric, when we may not necessarily know or see it, we can ask and certainly meet. And so what the recommendation was is that you didn't have to rate on all of them. if there's one or two focus areas that the committee just determines prior to. So like for next year, prior to, once we start maybe in January or February, can say for next year's evaluation, these would be focus areas that we would focus on. So you wouldn't have to go and, section, whatever, and do all 5 or 6 of them. You could still do that, but the focus can be on 2, it might even be like 2 to 3.
So in the end, we'll set that as part of our own work in the beginning of the year should be to set those focus areas so that Lisa knows what we're looking at as well as ourselves agreeing on what we're looking at.
Correct. And then the other suggestion was, you don't necessarily have to have a review every year. You could do it every 2 years, and the in-between year could be like an assessment, or a progress report type
What's
of
going
thing.
well, what's not going
Right.
well.
So if you were doing the strategic plan or a long range, and you need a little bit more time to see more things working, that was a recommendation. Doesn't mean you have to. It was just because some school committees were like, well, I just got on board and I, wasn't able to have enough time to review the superintendent. So it kind of can work that way. There's actually a presentation that we can give you their videos that show how you would go through the evaluation process. And, I'm thinking maybe this is a policy committee, like the subcommittee to determine, for the future evaluation, how we would want to proceed possibly with, do we do the evaluation every year or do we do it every, 2 years with the update, progress update in the in-between year, and then what would be the focus of the evaluation for the coming year for the superintendent? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like that idea.
I'm curious, Lisa, your thoughts. Do you find it beneficial to have a full evaluation every year, or do you think a progress report, every other year would be just as good or even better?
I think for us, the piece where everything's really connected to our strategic plan, having that focus in allowing the school committee to focus the evaluation, because what you speak about are really all the connections to our strategic plan. And then the other pieces you're checking off. So I think it would be helpful for us to take a look at the process with some changes at the state level to allow that flexibility for school committees, and to talk about that we do a similar process with our teachers where it's a formative assessment one year and then it's a summative assessment the next year. So a similar process, but it doesn't have to be as involved. And then we continue to work with all of the connections with our strategic plan. But
Any other discussion?
Am I hearing that the policy committee gets to do something with this thing that we use?
yes.
Do you really want to send it to me?
Well,
You really want me to comment on it?
at least take a look at it. And
I've
again,
looked at it.
No. I understand, and I know what you feel for this form itself, but maybe take a look at the videos on the presentation just to see what other folks are saying, because there's also other school committee members that are actually speaking on the video, other superintendents that are speaking. And the presentation Lisa and I actually sat in on had a superintendent and her school committee member, and there was a couple other district school committee members that are actually in the video, that spoke about it. It was interesting, and to kind of know that you don't necessarily have to rate on every single one of these, that you could just really focus on certain ones might be.
First of all, I'm always willing to listen and watch. But nobody's ever going to convince me that there's any usefulness to this particular form that they have. But that's okay. It's to me. I do, I've figured out how to get around it, so I'm good.
I think we have to take the process, we have to make it meaningful in some way. Right now, this is the form that the state has given us. I think it has its limitations, but I think we're obligated to try and give some meaning to the process, and maybe narrowing down the focus areas is one way to reach that happy medium between it's impossible to work with this and, trying to do everything with it. So I kind of like that middle ground of looking for focus areas that can focus our own evaluation.
And I think each of you have done that over the years, is to be to take this form and make it work for us here in Danvers and to give valuable feedback to me. So I really appreciate that. And I think, as Eric, you're saying, the piece with the strategic plan is that I went through it this year and seeing the presentation was able to take a look at, to be able to work through the next couple of months with school committee as to what are the areas of our strategic plan. We have a similar process with our teachers that I look forward to sharing with the policy subcommittee also, where Mary works with our teachers and comes up with the priority area. So again, if there's 40 indicators, we're not looking and evaluating our teachers on 40 indicators, but teachers know as we go into the process what are our priority areas, and they all, again, connect back to where we want to go with the strategic plan. Good. Thank you.
So maybe food for the policy committee?
I'd love to have this at the policy committee.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for entertaining that. We can send you the link to the videos and the presentation from the conference.
I would love to see the videos.
I know, you enjoy watching them, don't you?
I do.
On DCAT and everything, yeah.
To do. Well,
Right, very good, thank you.
Since
Thank
Dice
you
of
very
Fate went
much. I
away.
appreciate the feedback.
yeah.
Okay, homeschooling proposals.
Thank you. We do have one, and I did work with this family. So the superintendent recommends the approval of the notice of intent for the homeschool education for the 2019-20 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Homeschooling proposal passes.
Okay, thank you.
Out-of-state field trip, overnight field trip requests.
Okay, we have a couple. The superintendent recommends the approval of the out-of-state field trips for Danvers High School to Italy, Austria, and Germany, February 12th through the 20th of 2021. For the Smith School Chorus and Band to the Great East Festival at Canopy Lake Park, Salem, New Hampshire on May 29th, 2020. And for the Danvers High Ski Club to Brenton Woods, January 14th, Loon Mountain, January 11th, Ragged Mountain, February 1st, and Cannon Mountain on February 29th, 2020. All of these, and all of for the ski trips are all in New Hampshire.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Field trips pass. Fundraising requests.
The superintendent recommends the approval of fundraising events for the Danvers High School class of 2023 for our Danvers High School basketball cheering, the Danvers High School swim team boosters, and the DHS Students Against Destructive Decisions.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Fundraising passes. Order of business, communications.
Thank you. We always have our link to our North Shore Education Consortium website and the annual report at our last meeting that we had last week. We were given the draft of that, so it is going to print, and we'll be able to share that with you in January.
Thank you. Legislation. Eric?
The legislature is now in recess. They passed their budget for the coming year, and we've discussed in previous meetings increases in Chapter 70 funding. So I think there may have been there's a supplemental budget that has not been completed. Basically, it's additional revenue that came in for this past year, and they can go back and do something with that. It's like a surplus that they can now figure out a way to use through a supplemental budget. And I think that's what the legislature will be turning to when they come back in January.
And the education reform bill passed.
Right,
as well.
that includes that additional funding, and yeah.
Thank you. DEEP. DEEP will hold their monthly meeting this Wednesday. It will be change of location. It will be here at Danvers High School in the guidance office. And DEEP also had a successful downtown holiday festival and tree lighting this past weekend with Danvers Cares. We worked together to provide that opportunity for the community to come together to celebrate the start of the holiday season. It was a wonderful event. We also worked with Essex Tech. They also came and participated, showcasing their skills of face painting and gingerbread cookies. And we also had our musical groups from the middle school and the high school come and sing. And then we also had the Danvers members of the Danvers band come and help lead Santa in, march in front of him in the fire truck, which was actually a very awesome experience. And Santa was there, and it was a wonderful time. So I, on behalf of DEEP, want to thank everyone in the community for coming, supporting, and all town departments, because it was definitely a team effort. And looking forward to next year, I guess.
Is that a commitment?
Yeah, I've been already thinking about it. So yes, possibly. Danvers Cares.
Danvers Cares, good. Yeah, the last meeting was held a week ago Monday, and it was really a good overview of several of the programs and kind of a reminder of how much Danvers Cares does. So I won't describe all of these, but obviously the holiday festival, tips training for bartenders, so that's obviously about alcohol, catch my breath curriculum, Northeast Tobacco Free Community Partnerships, so, you're talking about vaping, you're talking about smoking, HRMS youth retreats, right, so, focus on youth and positive experiences, marine science internships, so now we're into marine science and the environment, so it all ties together. There's just so many other things that are kind of going on, so, there's subcommittees for Light the Night Purple, the Teen Health and Safety Guide, which is going to be coming out, so we talked about that as well. Just a whole lot of really, really good things. So very happy with that.
And can I just add to that tomorrow night, Danvers Cares is sponsoring a seminar here at the high school on vaping, what every parent should know about vaping, which obviously is a huge topic and a huge concern right now. So someone is going to be coming in talking about everything involved with vaping and actually having vape products, e-cigarettes, all of the paraphernalia available for people to look at, touch, feel, so they know what they might be looking at if they come across one.
And is that here 6 to
Here at
7?
the high school, and I should know the time. I want to say it's
6.
Is it
to
6?
7, yeah.
That's the Northeast Tobacco Free Community Partnership with Ashley Hall. 6 to 7, Danvers High School.
Excellent. Thank you. CPAC. Is there an update?
Not an update, but I was just looking at the link that we have here. Just a reminder that their Facebook site really has a lot of good information and resources throughout the community, the North Shore, the state. So I think in today's world of how much information you can receive through that, they're really keeping up the Facebook page with lots of great resources. So it's not as many meetings during the year, but using the social media to support families.
Excellent. Yes, I've seen a lot of the events or people asking for certain information. Where can I take my child to do like a sensory-free class of some kind? And there's usually someone's always sharing the information. So it's definitely a great resource. So thank you. Policy.
We have
All
not
set at
had
the
a
moment,
policy
right?
meeting recently, but
Not yet.
probably due for another one soon, especially now that we're working on
Yes.
evaluations.
More next time.
Thank you. Danvers Human Rights and Inclusion Committee.
At the most recent meeting, most of the discussion surrounded the planning for the Martin Luther King event, which will be here in January, and trying to pick just the right speaker to sort of set the tone. And I think the idea will be to some extent to talk more about inclusion broadly. And so there, I don't know who the speaker will be yet, but there are several folks with several subjects that we're considering. And the other item coming up is the lighting of the menorah. And I believe that's scheduled for December 23rd, unless the date was changed. And I don't know that they have, at least as of the last meeting, they weren't entirely sure where the menorah was going to be this year. They're still talking about that, unless something has developed in the last few weeks that I haven't heard about. So maybe a more visible place is being considered. So just some thoughts.
Great. Thank you.
More to come.
Minutes.
Madam Chair, I move that the minutes from the November 4th, 2019 regular meeting be approved and be released.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Minutes pass. Budget and donations.
Before you have the monthly budget report for the month of November, as I alluded to last month, you'll see that we are forecasting an overage in our tuition out account for this year. At the moment, it's forecasted to be $650,000 over budget. We've had a significant number of move-ins. We've had 4 students move in since we set our budget last year that have out-of-district placements, and actually have another 4 that just came to us in the last couple of weeks that are still pending what their final placements will be. So I'm not quite sure why we've had this influx recently, but we have. At one point, we had 20 students that have registered since the start of the year, and 8 of them actually are for out-of-district placements. As well, we had, with DESE, they can do program reconstruction. So if you're a private school, you can go back to it's OSD, the Operational Services Division, and say that your tuition rates aren't proper for the program you're offering so that you get more than the OSD inflation rate. So we've had 3 students that had to go for program reconstructions, and they were approved by DESE, as well as 2 students, one that was a current student that needed to be placed in a medical placement, and then another that was in an out-of-district placement that became a residential placement. So with significantly higher costs. The good news is that we do carry our circuit breaker reserve account for years like this. So the revenue that we collect this year is revenue that we'll spend last year. So revenue we collected last year for this year. So we have a little bit of wiggle room with that. So we do have enough cash to close out the year. It'll just present us with a budget challenge going into next year as we look to fix that base and then account for changes that might be coming for next year.
So,
No, go ahead.
so if we are 600,000 over and we've had 4 to 8 placements, does that mean the average cost is over 100,000 per student?
So if it, for like the student, let's say that went from being a day placement to a residential placement, the increase in cost for that is $150,000.
Gotcha.
Just that change of placement. And then private schools range somewhere between $80,000 and $130,000 a year, while consortium placements are around $60,000 on average. So they are expensive.
Yep.
So effectively, what you're saying is we have cash on hand, in essence, to deal with this year. But when we sit down in February to start thinking about that next budget, this is going to be a serious consideration as to the overall impact on the budget of this baseline, our new baseline number, so to speak.
Right. And this is historically what we've kind of seen cyclically is that we'll have budget years where we're at, somewhere between 2.5% and 3.5% for a 5-year period. And then we'll have a year where we need a 5 or 6%, or we need to look at what type of, alternative revenues that we're looking at in that given year to reduce that number. And I can't quite figure out why it seems to be cyclically, but it seems to be about every 5 years that we have these blips that come through. This has been a bigger blip than I think I can remember in recent memory.
I mean, it seems like it would make sense to the extent possible to, rather than assume that we can use the whole circuit breaker reserve, if there are other ways we can, move things around, decide, make some decisions during the course of the year to not exhaust the circuit breaker, that would seem to be a good idea for us going into next year.
And we do, and the administrators, I think, know I'm a broken record at this point with this, but so every year when we spend all of our non-salary money, we basically do a 70-30 split. So I say to them, you can have 70% of your money to spend whenever you want. If that's July 1st, great. If that's not till April 1st, great. We're going to hold back 30% of that money so we can see what our financial challenges are during the year. And if possible, we release it every January or February once we have a clear picture. So this would be one of those years where we will hold that 30% to help account for some of those costs as we get into the springtime.
Through you, Madam Chair, would just ask that we be updated regularly on this specific item.
This specific
Yeah,
item.
along with the budget, just really talk about
Yes.
this item.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, question, so someone moves into the district and they are at an outside placement, then we take over that cost.
And that's sounds like a simple question. It's actually complicated. So yes, as of July 1st at the latest. So when a student moves in, we automatically become programmatically responsible. If a student is in some private placements, the district where they were as of, it's actually April 15th is the date, remains fiscally responsible for the remainder of that year. Consortium placements, that does not qualify for. So anytime somebody that goes to a consortium or a collaborative moves into your district, you become programmatically and fiscally responsible immediately.
And then, what was the other question? There's no real way to forecast what you might see in any given year, move-ins or, new students that may need outside services, right?
And on average, we have 2 or 3, and we typically account for those through either carrying like what we call pending placements internally as part of the budget for next year, or in this given year, with last year being a tight year as well, we said we were going to carry those pending placements within our circuit breaker reserve, and that was a conscious decision we made to balance all the needs, but there is no way to forecast if it's going to be, 8 students like this year. That is, and I would say to the credit of Mary Tatum, we've gone from being around 80 students that we had out of district and really working on creating those in-district programs to meet those students' needs and reducing that number down into the high 60s or the low 70s. And then this blip is going to put us back up, but the hope is that we're now programmatically responsible, we'll be able to evaluate those students and see if they are a fit for our in-district programs, and then work through that IEP process to have them come back to one of our programs if possible. But again, right, IEPs are for a year, so when a student moves in, they get to continue where their placement is until we get to know the student and work with that family.
Great, thank you. Dave?
I'm good.
Arthur?
I'm fine.
All right, thank you.
Donations. So we do have 3 donations. The Shady Hill School, which is in Cambridge, Mass., who's donated computers to us in the past, was able to again donate 36 MacBook Pros and 12 iMacs to the district. So we're very appreciative of them and always thinking of us when they get new equipment in. And then a thank you to the Oreto family and the Wright family from Smith School, who both made donations to the Smith PAC to provide scholarships for after-school enrichment programs for students who couldn't afford to participate.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone. Okay, personnel.
Your monthly report for personnel, we do wish Mary Jane Welch, the Student Services Administrative Assistant, a healthy and happy retirement. Her last day was November 15th, and we're welcoming Irene Lynch into her position as of November 18th, and look forward to working with her.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Anything else this evening? No? Our next meeting, Diane?
January 13th.
January 13th, 2020. I want to wish everyone here and everyone in the community a very happy holiday season, and we will see you all next year.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Thank you, and good night, Danvers.